Supposed to dance like no one's watching. So I'm just gonna pretend nobody was watching. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to Night Court. Um, let's talk about this for a second because it was 100% impulsive. Anybody who was around me today heard me or read me to say, I think it's time for Night Court to come back. And so much positivity came out of that. I was so excited. Hi, Terry. Please feel better and give Jasper a hug for me because it's Jasper. He's already behaving better than my Casper. Hello. Oh, no, don't watch. I still dance anyways. What's the difference? Hello, all my wonderful mods. You guys are wonderful. I kind of want to test this and see what happens. So let me see if this works. Does it work? Nightbot, you gonna work for me? You gonna? Nope. Yep. Oh yes. Oh, we've got the commands rolling. Mods, you guys have them. They're pinned. Llama pinned them somewhere. I don't know where, but yes. So hello everybody. Welcome back to Night Court. There's gonna be some new stuff and old stuff's moved, and oh my gosh. So much has happened in the past few months. If you stuck around, you've seen that True Crime and Wine Time's gone live, and we're doing that every other Thursday. And then we've reintroduced for me, but introduced to you, the Hey Ho Show, which is every Friday opposite of True Crime and Wine Time. And that's a lot of fun where me and my buddy Rudy, we just talk about crazy stuff, top 10 lists, crazy news. We just hang out with our buddies because it's been a long week for most of you of trial watching, and it's time to chill out. So that's Friday at 9. Terry and I are on Thursdays, every other Thursdays at 8:30. And then this, I'm thinking, will be Monday, Wednesday at 9. Don't hold me to that. I don't want to promise you something and then not deliver. I believe in delivering. So I'm still trying to work that balance out. We do not want to burn out like last time. For sure. But I love it so much, and I love you guys, and I love the fact that Night Court is back, and I get to hang out with my goodest of friends. My goodest of boys and girls. Let's say hi to some folks, shall we? Let's see. You know what? Even before we started, Miss Lisa Wilmot, who...
Hello, Poppy.
Let me know if you heard that or not. It's been a while since I've used sound effects, but she was here. I'm sad you couldn't either, but alas, you know, I'm glad that you were able to chat. Oh, hold on. Wait a second. Hold on. Nightbot's going crazy. Give me a second. Indy Cindy. Was it Indy Cindy? Indy Cindy, ignore Nightbot. Ignore Nightbot for a moment. And Miss Terry, you might have to you may or may not have to approve. Nope, there we go. Okay. Ignore. I gotta fix the doodad for a second. So one second. I'm so sorry, everybody. Let me just disable everything. Disable. Okay. Everything should be fine now. Indy Cindy, it says that you were timed out for 5 seconds. I'm so sorry. Ignore. Hands off the doodad. You guys are correct. It is bad Nightbot. Bad Nightbot. I think I saw Jamie. Hello. You have not missed it. We just started. Hello, Amos. Sorry, Indy, about the whole timeout for 5 seconds thing. Anyways, back to saying hi to Lisa. Lisa, hello, puppets. Hello, Amy. Hello, Llama. Hello, Captain. Hello, Terry, Angie, Sam, Buffy. Hey, everybody. If you are interested in still donating to the cause that I was speaking about the other night, I am going to copy this over into my brand and pop that in, let's see here, banners. If you didn't know, one of Buffy's friends down in Slidell lost everything, and so everything donation wise is still open. Feel free to donate a helping hand. That would be wonderful if you can. If not, that's totally okay. Hi, Linda. Hello. Aw. Well, I'm here a lot. I'm on this channel a lot. Every other Thursday, every other Friday, Monday, and Wednesday. Thank you, Angie. Best mods ever. That's right. No, I didn't do it. Can I fix? I feel like Dub H might have an issue with that. Certainly Jasper, for sure. So, the quiz that we typically do here on Night Court has moved to the Hey Ho Show. So that's where you'll find the quiz. So we're still doing the quiz, if you don't know, and it's pretty much like it used to be. So that's moved to Hey Ho Show. I gotta find some stuff to fill this time, but we are also going to be starting the Chandler Halderson trial. I almost said Halderson. It's not Halderson, it's Halderson. Now these trials, I mean, this is one of those things where we're just gonna have to chill and we'll just let it happen. It's not like a long trial. It certainly isn't a Jodi Arias trial. Thank God. But it, it's gonna take us a little bit of time, and I'll go off of what you guys think. From what I talked to Llama about, the opening statements you definitely want to play at real-time speed, but you can kind of go 1.25 for a lot. So that hopefully will help us kind of push through. But I don't want to push it too much. Nan! No, the quiz didn't break me. Not at this point. It wasn't the quiz, for sure. But it helps because now that it's on Hey Ho Show, it's every other week. So I have way more time. And then subsequently, everybody else has way more time. So it's helping. Doing 2 shows every other week alternating, and then that gives me time to record Brew Crime and then narrate Active Shooter, and then also I can't finish sentences. I need to finish sentences. JT, finish sentences. And then Night Court Monday, Wednesday. So I'm here a lot. A lot. Wizard of Oz, you are correct. The Wizard of Oz did. So did the fact, if anybody knows Phineas and Ferb, I've been spending most of my days with my children imitating Doofenshmirtz, and oops. I've been staying busy. Yeah, but see, you just assume that you don't, right? You just assume that you don't. We live here now. We do. We live here. We go here. These are the rules. This is what we do. So thank you so much for joining. How many of you, by a show of hands, are familiar with Chandler Halderson? Just let me know. Oh, Matt. Oh, my shirt matches your pajamas. What? I'm a little jealous there. Let's go and just talk a little bit about Chandler. All right, so never heard of him. So July of 2021, so much more recent than usual. Bart and Krista Halderson were living a quiet life. And by the way, this is from CBS News, in Windsor, Wisconsin. They had a beautiful home, were the proud parents of 2 sons. Mitchell, 24, worked in tech and was engaged to be married. Chandler, 23, was attending Madison College, studying for an IT degree, and said he was looking forward to a job he had lined up at SpaceX. There's your first problem. Anyways, mom and dad ended up not being seen. Mom didn't show up for work. Her coworker began to worry. Chandler lived at home, told mom's work friend that his parents went to a family cabin for the July 4th weekend. So it's a whole thing. I'm sure you will hear a lot more about it in the opening statements. So it's going to be fascinating. Right? Just doomed from the beginning. just like X, formerly known as Twitter, which I still call Twitter, because if you DM somebody, it's a DMX, and I don't know how I feel about that. Yes, he was an evil little dude for sure. All right, so here's what I am going to do. I am going to try and present this in the correct fashion so that you get a full screen. Let's see if we can do that appropriately. Hey, look, there we go. An actual full screen. Look at this fella in his bow tie. What a champ. What a champion. Yes, Twix. Well, that's one consonant off of a completely different subgenre. Welcome to Night Court. Oh, that joke made sense to me. Well, to welcome back Night Court, I've got the most expensive bottle of wine that I possibly could, Winking Owl, also known as Aldi's bottom shelf. It's a Moscato. It's actually pretty good because Aldi apparently knows how to pick them. I also have water. I seriously thought about it too, because obviously this was an impulse. I thought about getting Milk Duds this weekend. I did not. Milk Duds will come back, as will popcorn, because that's Night Court's snack of choice. somebody DM Holly. Or maybe it was a little bit, it's just TWINX, which is not actually how you spell it, but yeah, there you go. Surprise, I'm gonna get taken off the air. No, I don't have any duds today. Nope, I've got an Alice Cooper concert VHS. So I heard it smacking you in the forehead. I did. Oh, God, I love you guys. All right, so you know what? Let's get started. And as you know, I enjoy my sound effects, and I haven't really gotten to use them lately. And it's not because anybody's told me not to, because working with Terry is an absolute joy and a pleasure, and I love her to death. Before anything, if you all are around the general area of Denver, Terry, myself, and Mike from Brew Crime, we're going to the True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival. It is coming up. True Crime. You think I'd know what the date was? It'd help if I bought a plane ticket though, too. Oh God. Let's see. July 12th through the 14th, Denver, Colorado, at the Denver Marriott Westminster. Very, very excited about that. We're psyched. No, not yet. Send me, just yell at me on Discord. I need to, for sure. But I will be there. July. It'll be 11th at night through the 15th in the morning, and should be a good time. Hopefully, they're going to put True Crime and Wine Time and Brew Crime together, or it's going to be a crazy time. No, they better. I'll just move tables. It's just how I do. Ask for forgiveness rather than permission. I've done that in the past, but me in the butt. But oh well. I know, it's so close. If I can, I will. You know, I will. So yes. All right. So let's go ahead and get started on this. It's gonna be fun. I'm just gonna do this because I miss Lisa, and there's so much here. This trial was recommended to me by Angie and Llama and a lot of my mods. So hopefully it's a good entry point. I trust them. So this should be fun, right? I think so. Here we go. Maybe.
Excellent. Folks, thank you very much for getting here this morning. I need to ask you whether or not any member of the jury panel was exposed to any information between 4 o'clock yesterday when I last saw you and this moment, whether you engaged in conversations with others, with each other, or sought intentionally or were unintentionally exposed to any information about the case. If so, raise your hand. Mr. Burkhart.
Yeah, I got a soup and a Campbell soup. Campbell on the list.
It is possibly a name that I read yesterday. There were a lot that I don't remember, but other than that, we're good. All right, good. Thank you. I didn't see any other hands. The first thing we do this morning, folks, is provide you with preliminary jury instructions. We have, frankly, instructions for almost everything to help explain the law to the jury and to give guidance. And that's the intent of these. They first start out giving you some firm, concrete reinforcement of what I've already told you about what you need to do in this process and how this process will proceed. There are then standard instructions about evidence and about your role and what you should and should not expect as far as evidence in this case. And then a substantive instruction on each of the counts, describing to you the elements that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt and how to interpret some of those terms, including finally
100%.
the meaning of reasonable doubt, the presumption of innocence, etc. Now, for purposes of this preliminary instruction, I did combine the counts in the information so that I'm not reading all 8, but I'm reading 4 with a reference in each to the count regarding Bart Halderson and the count regarding Krista Halderson, simply to save time and because you're not reaching determinations today. You don't reach any determinations until we send you to the jury room for that purpose. But just to save time, because the elements are the same, whether it's the first count or the 5th count. Before the trial begins, there are certain instructions you should have to better understand your functions as a juror and how you should conduct yourself during the trial. Your duty is to decide the case based only on the evidence presented at trial and the law given to you by the court. Anything you may see or hear outside the courtroom is not evidence. Do not let any personal feeling about race, religion, national origin, sex, or age affect your consideration of the evidence. Do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all the evidence is presented and I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations in the jury room. We will stop or recess from time to time during the trial. You may be excused from the courtroom when it is necessary for me to hear legal arguments from the lawyers. If you come into contact with the parties, lawyers, or witnesses, do not speak with them. For their part, the parties, lawyers, and witnesses will not contact or speak with the jurors. Do not listen to any conversation about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene. Do not read any newspaper reports or listen to any news reports on radio or television or electronic devices about this trial. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, websites, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness in this case. Any information you obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device with communication capabilities to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by blog, email, text message, Twitter, or in any other way on or off the computer about this case until after you are discharged from your duties. Do not permit anyone to communicate with you. And if anyone does so, despite your telling them not to, you should report that to me. I appreciate that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and discussion and decision in this case. After this trial is completed, you are free to communicate.
What are we free to communicate? What are we free to communicate?
All parties to begin a new trial
Here we go.
involving additional time and significant expense to the
Sir, you sound like a
pardons,
robot.
and the taxpayers. You are to decide evidence solely on the evidence offered and received at trial. Evidence
What
is first
building?
the sworn testimony of witnesses, both on direct and cross-examination, regardless of who called the witness. Second, the ability of the witnesses and of the weight to be given to their testimony. In determining the credibility of each witness and the weight you give to the testimony of each witness, consider these factors. Whether the witness has an interest or lack of interest in the result of this trial. The witness's conduct, appearance, and demeanor on the witness stand. The clearness or lack of clearness of the witness's recollections. The opportunity the witness had for observing and for knowing the matters the witness testified about. The reasonableness of the witness's testimony. The apparent intelligence of the witness. Bias or prejudice, if any, has been shown. Possible motives for falsifying testimony, and all other facts and circumstances during the trial which tend either to support or to discredit the testimony. Then give to the testimony of each witness the weight you believe it should receive. There's no magic way for you to evaluate the testimony. Instead, you should use your common sense and experience. In everyday life, you determine for yourselves the reliability of things people say to you. You should do the same thing here. An information is nothing more than a written formal accusation against a defendant charging the commission of one or more criminal acts. You are not to consider it as evidence against the defendant in any way. It does not raise any inference of guilt.
That's right, sir. You drink that throat coat.
Count 1 and count 5 of the amended information each allege that the above-named
He shall never
defendant,
show
Chandler
up
M.
again.
Halderson, on and or between July 1, 2021 and July 8, 2021 in Dane County, Wisconsin, did, as to count 1, cause the death of Bart A. Halderson with intent to kill that person, and as to count 5, cause the death of Krista R. Halderson with intent to kill that person, both contrary to WISSTAT section 940.01, sum 1, sub A. To these two charges, Chandler M. Halderson has entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of each offense charged beyond a reasonable doubt. First-degree intentional homicide, as defined in section 940.01 of the Criminal Code of Wisconsin, is committed by one who causes the death of another human being with the intent to kill that person or another. Before you may find the defendant guilty of either of these offenses, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following two elements were present for each count. Number 1, the defendant caused the death of Bart A. Halderson, and, as to the second charge, caused the death of Krista R. Halderson. Cause means that the defendant's act was a substantial factor in producing the death. Element 2, the defendant acted with the intent to kill Bart A. Halderson, and, as to the second charge, acted with intent to kill Krista R. Halderson. Intent to kill means that the defendant had the mental purpose to take the life of another human being or was aware that his conduct was practically certain to cause the death of another human being. While the law requires that the defendant acted with intent to kill, it does not require that the intent exist for any particular length of time before the act is committed. The act need not be brooded over, considered, or reflected upon for a week, a day, an hour, or even a minute. There need not be any appreciable time between the formation of the intent and the act. The intent to kill may be formed at any time before the act, including the instant before the act, and must continue to exist at the time of the act. You cannot look into a person's mind to find intent. Intent to kill must be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all the facts and circumstances in this case bearing upon intent. Intent should not be confused with motive. While proof of intent
I
is
could
necessary
never be a
to
juror.
a conviction,
I would
proof
have
of
lost.
motive is not.
All focus.
Motive refers to a person's
Like I
reason
have
for
now.
doing something. While motive may be shown as a circumstance to aid in establishing the guilt of the defendant, the state is not required to prove motive on the part of a defendant in order to convict. Evidence of motive does not by itself establish guilt. You should give it the weight you believe it deserves under all the circumstances. If you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, as to the first count, caused the death of Bart A. Halderson, and as to the second count, the fifth count, caused the death of Krista R. Halderson, with, as to each count, the intent to kill, you should find the defendant guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty. Count 2 and count 6 of the information each allege that the above-named defendant, Chandler M. Halderson, on and or between July 1, 2021 and July 8, 2021 in Dane County, Wisconsin, did deliver written and or oral communication with intent to induce a false belief that the defendant had knowledge of the whereabouts or physical condition of a missing person, Bart A. Halderson as to count 2, and Krista R. Halderson as to count 6, both contrary to WISStat section 946.48 sub 1. To these two charges, Chandler M. Halderson has entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of each offense beyond a reasonable doubt. Section 946.48 of the Criminal Code of Wisconsin is violated by one who sends, delivers, and or causes to be transmitted to another any written or oral communication with intent to induce a false belief that the sender has knowledge of the whereabouts of a missing person. Before you may find the defendant guilty of either of these offenses, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following two elements were present for each count. Number 1, the defendant sent, delivered, or caused to be transmitted a written or oral communication to Dane County Sheriff's deputies. Element 2, the defendant did so with the intent to induce a false belief that he had knowledge of the whereabouts of a missing person, specifically Bart A. Halderson as to count 2 and Krista R. Halderson as to count 6. This means that the defendant had the mental purpose to cause the Dane County Sheriff deputies to believe that he had knowledge of the whereabouts of a missing person, specifically Bart A. Halderson and Krista R. Halderson, or was aware that his conduct was practically certain to cause Dane County Sheriff deputies to believe that he had knowledge of the whereabouts of a missing person. Again, specifically Bart A. Halderson and Krista R. Halderson. You cannot look into a person's mind to find intent. Intent must be found.
We've heard this before, right?
The term reasonable doubt means a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It is
reasonable doubt is defined as a doubt based on reason. Sugar smacks are smacks based on sugar. You're using the word to define the word.
is a doubt for which a reason can be given, arising from a fair and rational consideration of the evidence or lack of evidence. It means such a doubt as would cause which would cause a person of ordinary prudence to pause or hesitate when called upon to act out merely from sympathy. All
right, come on now. Where are you at?
By the way, you don't.
There we go.
While he's doing that, I'll promise you he'll give you a copy of that. By the way, you don't have to remember all of those instructions. My name is William Brown. I'm the Deputy District Attorney, Dane County. Yesterday, you met Andrea Raymond. Together, we're the prosecutors in the case. You heard a little bit about how the process worked in jury selection, and you probably thought you were being strung along the whole time, and in a bit you were. Everyone was trying to gauge your knowledge of the case, maybe any preconceived notions you had about the criminal justice system. Ms. Vera asked you a lot of questions about what you would think if she did nothing and sat there, and those were good questions. I won't do nothing in this case because it would be a very short trial if I did. You're going to hear from me, Ms. Raymond, quite a bit. Our job in a case is to present evidence. That means to call witnesses. The judge talked about what evidence is. When we think of evidence, sometimes we think of, especially a murder case. You're in a murder case. You think of the gun. And you'll get that. There'll be a gun. You'll see that. But evidence is so much more. The first thing evidence is the first thing the judge mentioned.
Is it
Evidence is first the sworn
Emma?
testimony of witnesses, both on direct and cross-examination. When people raise their right hand and they swear to tell the truth, that's evidence. Now, you as jurors can decide whether you believe it or not. Does this person have any bias or prejudice? Do they have anything to gain by what they're saying? Do they have anything to lose? All those things are up to you. But sworn testimony is evidence. Photographs are evidence. Videos are evidence. Statements made by people involved in the case, including Mr. Halderson, are evidence. Our job is to, over the course of the next couple of weeks, present evidence to show you the path of what we believed happened, which is that Chandler Halderson killed his parents, dismembered their bodies, and hid them around southern Wisconsin. I've been talking about Bart and Krista Halderson. You've heard their names mentioned numerous times by the judges here. That's Bart and Krista Halderson. I'm going to try to use some photos as I talk to maybe guide us along. Some people are more visual learners, some aren't. That's Bart and Krista Halderson, a couple in their early 50s, living in Windsor, Wisconsin, a quiet street, in a quiet house, kind of in a quiet town. If you don't know Windsor, think just south of DeForest. Maybe if you're heading up toward the Dells, when you see the Fleet Farm on your left, if you looked right, that's Windsor. That's the Halderson home. At this point, perhaps it would be best if I told you a little bit about the Halderson family. Bart, the father, Krista, the mother. They have two sons, Chandler, the defendant, and his older brother, Mitchell. Chandler and Mitchell are close in age, but Mitchell's a little bit older. The time this all happened, living in the Halderson home, was Bart Halderson, Krista Halderson, and Chandler. Mitchell had moved out. Mitchell had a job working as an IT person for a local corporation, doing pretty well in life. He's engaged, doing pretty well in life. Buying a house, adult things, growing up. But in July of 2021, it's Bart and Krista living in that house, and their adult 23-year-old son, Chandler Halderson, living in his room. Now, all of the events I'm going to describe, for the most part, take place during the first week of July, from the 1st to about the 8th. So I put up a calendar. This is not evidence in the case, I suppose. It might be. Maybe I'll mark it as an exhibit. But it's to provide some reference, and I put the little flag on there, because if you remember this year, the 4th of July was on a Sunday. Everyone celebrated, of course, all weekend. A lot of places celebrated on Saturday, but the 4th of July was on a Sunday. Now, I'm giving my opening statement. The judge told you opening statements aren't evidence. And in fact, that's the reason you don't have notebooks. I'd like to think so, you have to pay attention to me, but that's not true. It's because nothing I say is evidence. So as I say things up here, what I'm saying is what I expect to prove in the next couple of weeks. But what I expect to prove beyond any reasonable doubt is that on July 1st, 2021, somewhere between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., Chandler Halderson murdered his parents. It's an important date, and it's an important time to remember. July 1st, between 3 and 5. But the story doesn't start there. And this trial wouldn't be 3 to 4 weeks if the trial ended there.
No.
The story starts a week later, on July 7th, 2021. Nearly a week after killing his parents, but no one in the world knowing. Chandler Halderson walks into the Northeast Precinct of the Dane County Sheriff's Office and says, "I'd like to file a missing persons report." He sits down with sheriff's deputies, and you'll meet them today, And he gives a long story. My parents, they just haven't come back from the cabin. They were there this weekend. We have a cabin up north. It's in White Lake, up in Langlade County. It's pretty far up north, a couple of hours. They just haven't come back yet. They were going to come back Monday or Tuesday, and I don't know where they are. Who were they with? The deputies ask. I don't know. I helped them pack Thursday night. They must have left Friday early before I woke up at 6. Who'd they go with? I don't know. Where are their cars? Well, they're still at the house. What'd you help them pack? Bottles of liquor, lots of money, tools, silver bars. Why were they going up there? Some people they were fixing a window. Some people there was a plumbing issue, storm damage. The story varied. Sometimes they took just money.
Bars of silver to our plumbing issue. My parents wouldn't trust me to help them pack.
Talking to numerous sheriff's deputies, detectives, including those detectives. He gives this bizarre story of his parents leaving in an unknown car, going to a cabin with an unknown couple, with an unknown amount of money, for really an unknown reason. So sheriff's deputies do what cops do, which is they ask him, have you heard from him? And he says, yeah. I got a text from my mom. And he did. He showed him his phone. Made it safely. This is from Chandler Halderson to Chaz. That's what his family calls him. Not Chandler, they call him Chaz. Made it safely. Can't get anything through.
There's your
yes, it's packed.
You called him Chaz.
Going to White Lake today for the parade. We'll be home Monday night, Tuesday.
Did you look at that chart?
I love you lots. So at this point, the sheriff's deputies don't know what they're dealing with. These folks get up there and decide, now we're going to go to the casino.
Give them the old chazzle dazzle, chazzle dazzle
For a few days, we're going to play hooky. Didn't make a lot of sense. They started talking to coworkers and realized these people had never no call, no show, missed work, which they both did on Friday. Did they crash their car? Did this other couple kidnap them? Where the hell are they? But what good police do, and what they did in this case, is they start looking into the people who saw them last, who were with them last, who reported them missing. And in this case, all three of those things, the person who purportedly saw them last, was with them last, and reported them missing were the same person. There's Chandler Halderson. So what the police did, started to look into Chandler Halderson. This is all occurring in the same 24-hour, 48-hour period. And what they learn about him isn't suspicious at all. He's a Madison College student, MATC. They go by Madison College now, if you didn't get the email. Madison College student. He's about to graduate. He's studying renewable resource engineering, kind of a hybrid IT degree with solar panels, things of that sort. He's about to get a certificate. But things had looked bright for him. He'd recently been working at American Family Insurance. He's working from home like most of us the last couple of years. But he's working a good job at American Family Insurance. And not only was he working a good job, Chandler had just gotten a better job. He got hired at SpaceX. He was about to embark on a career that people in the IT field could only dream of. He's planning to move to Titusville, Florida. That's where SpaceX operation is, down in Florida, with his girlfriend. They'd rented an apartment. They'd bought a car. And not only was this not someone who was antisocial, he was pro-social. He was working with the Madison Police and the Department of Natural Resources on their rescue diving team. He was a scuba diver, working with the police. The only thing that was a bit odd is he'd recently suffered a head injury. Fallen down the stairs, had terrible concussion, was unable to move for the most part, had to wear a neck brace. He was permanently, perhaps injured. All of those things threw police off from thinking it was Chandler. He had anything to do with this. And at that point, for all they knew, as sad as it is, Bart and Krista and an unknown couple were crashed into a ditch somewhere between here and White Lake, Wisconsin, dead from a car crash. So they started looking.
Yes,
Deputies
that's
are
what
sent
I
up
thought
north.
too.
The Langlade County Sheriff's Department is searching a cabin. No one had ever been there. It didn't look like anyone had been there at all in years. It was run down. The grass hadn't been mowed. There was no food in the refrigerator. No one had been there. So the police expand their search and they start talking to not only just people about Chandler, they start talking to people who were with Chandler that weekend. Specifically, they talked to his girlfriend, a young girl named Catherine. She goes by Kat. And Kat says, I was with him like all weekend. We had a normal 4th of July weekend. We went out to my family's farm. We got a farm. There was a pool. We ate dinner. Chandler was having the concussion issue and he couldn't really move his legs. And so he asked to use their pool the next day because he thought that was good therapy. So the police, what do they do next? They go talk to the person who owns the farm. And they say, was Chandler out here? And she goes, yeah, he was out here on the 4th of July. But you know what? He showed up the next day by himself. He showed up the next day by himself. I told him he could come back anytime, as we just say to people, not expecting they're going to roll into your house the next day. She says he was acting bizarre. Said that he had a doctor's appointment and they'd given him some bad news that he was going to lose his job at SpaceX because he couldn't travel. He couldn't attend orientation to start. And she goes, he asked to use the pool. And of course I said yes. This woman will testify and she'll tell you that she sat in her house for a while, perhaps a bit weirded out that someone had just shown up at her rural farm, but she let him have his space. But about an hour later, she goes down to the pool to check on him.
Somebody typing.
He's not there. No one had opened the pool.
They've
No one
got
had been
this
in the
live
pool.
thing happening right now.
But she sees his car. It's parked out in the
Furious.
field,
No kidding.
away from
What?
the pool, backed in toward where that grass is a bit longer, and had its hatch up. She thought, boy, that was strange.
What is happening?
She thought maybe he's just on a walk. So she goes in the pool. She said,
I mean, it's not funny.
If you
this
remember
part,
that weekend,
but them
it's extraordinary.
doing this is hysterical.
She starts swimming. She says, then I see Chandler. He's walking out the woods in that area. Now, at this point in the investigation, the police are out there with this woman. They're out on the farm. And she says he walked out over there. And you'll hear from the Detective Brett Baverstock, who was out there. And he'll tell you that his eyes kind of shifted up and he saw vultures.
Chandler's odd.
And I promise the photos are only going to go this far for right now. But the police walked about 20 yards into the woods. And in that pile of debris, under dozens of sticks, bushes, and dirt, they found Bart Halderson. Now, when I say they found Bart Halderson, I need to explain that. They found a human torso. Someone had crudely chopped off the head, the arms, and sawed off the legs in the middle of the thigh, leaving the underwear on in the beginnings of the pants. They removed the sticks and brush over a course of a few hours. They brought out doctors from the medical examiner's office to make sure everything was done appropriately. They rolled the torso over. There were gunshots in the back. This man had been shot in the back and chopped up. At this point, the farm, beautiful farm, cultivated for years with wildflowers, kind of an Eden of sorts, was turned into a crime scene. Police swarmed the place. Drones were in the air. Cadavers, dogs were on the ground. Everyone's looking through absolutely everything they could, but it's a farm. There's a million places things could be. But one detective said, look at that in the woods. Is that a garbage can full of a tarp? It was. And I'll tell you that tarp was taken to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab eventually. Bart Halderson, Krista Halderson, their blood was all over it. Another detective said, that spot where Chandler was walking out of the woods, There's an oil barrel there, like an old fuel tank with a hole in it. That's right where the car was parked. So she peeks her head in. And that's what she sees. Broken saw blades, hand saws, scissors, tree loppers, all of them tested by the state crime lab, all of them covered in human flesh and blood of Bart and Krista Halderson. The farm was searched extensively, and I'll tell you that some months later, things were even continuing to be found up to this fall. In October, the homeowner, the person who owns the farm, was tearing apart a barn trying to clean it. And there in a barn about 100 yards from where Bart Halderson was found, the murder weapon behind a bunch of boards on the side of the barn. At this point in the investigation, the police knew they needed to start talking to Chandler. He's seen coming out of the location where his dad's body was, just brutally chopped apart. The tools, the cutting instruments are found there. So they do what police do. They bring him downtown. But they ask him, and he's at the house, and they ask him and his girlfriend to come downtown with them. And they do. And that girlfriend, Kat, is in one room, and Chandler is in another. Chandler, and you'll see this, we'll play it, for over an hour, meets with police, and again, regurgitates this odd story of his parents with this missing couple in a random car, going places that no one really knew. Where Kat, in the other room, she's vomiting information to the police. Literally vomiting at times, but also vomiting information in terms of she has her phone out. She's giving them pictures. She's providing every single detail she can because she'll tell you when she testifies. She's one of these people that watches these crime shows. And she knows when someone's missing, you got to exclude the people closest to him first. And she thought, that's what we got to do. Chandler didn't have anything to do with this. I didn't have anything to do with this. We got to get to the people who did. And the first step is we got to exclude us. She didn't for a second think that Mr. Halderson had done anything wrong. She thought she was with him most of the weekend. And I'll tell you right now, Kat did nothing wrong. Kat was an unknowing, unwilling accomplice to some of this, but she did absolutely nothing wrong. And she'll tell you, she liked Mr. and Mrs. Halderson. There were the normal disputes you'd have with your boyfriend or girlfriend's parents. Maybe you want to go out a lot and they don't let you. Maybe you want to hang out more than you don't want to.
I would never have a dispute with my girlfriend's parents.
Her phone is full of messages between her and Mrs. Halderson. Friendly in all respects. Kat meets with police not just once, but multiple times. And in one of these meetings, she says, you know what was weird? Is this weekend, when I was with Chandler, while his parents were at the cabin, I left the house early one day, on Saturday, in fact, Saturday, July 3rd. And she says, he told me he was going to do chores that morning around the house. But when I looked at my Snapchat, I saw his location was in a weird spot. If you don't know, on Snapchat, you can set it up so that other people can see exactly where you are. A GPS tracker.
Dangerous.
Chandler had that set up with his girlfriend. And she goes, it was so weird where he was. I took a screenshot of it on my phone. And that's what it showed. Chandler was saved as hubby in her phone. That's perhaps a term of endearment between two folks dating in their 20s. But she said, at 8:58 in the morning, when he was supposed to be doing chores on Saturday, July 3rd, I thought it was strange that he was in what appears to be a forest on the banks of the Wisconsin River near Prairie du Sac. The police
That's why I was vaccinated.
They identified immediately where that location was, just based on looking at it. That's a bridge. Couldn't be hard. Out they go. The drones go up. The dogs go out. The search team starts searching. Very quickly, and I promise this is as far as the photos will go, they find the remains of Krista Halderson. Now, when I say Krista Halderson, I have to qualify that as well. We found her legs. one complete leg, then somewhat farther away in another bush, a foot, a thigh, but the same pattern. Crudely cut apart with appears to be hand saws, axes, things of that sort. No more of Chandler Halderson that's identifiable to her will ever be found. She's just those two legs. At this point, the police thought, this is just a strange location. Why would Chandler be out there? He'd been out there before. And they started talking to people, including girlfriends of his in the past, friends of his. And they say, yeah, Chandler really liked this location out in the Wisconsin River. He'd go there all the time. It's where he'd go swimming. When his friends came into town, that was the secret swimming spot.
This advice
one
not
friend
brought
said,
to
you know
you
what?
or
Last year he
encouraged
sent me a picture
by me.
while he was out there. Kind of shirtless, hanging from a tree with a machete. I don't know. Didn't have a lot of significance at the time when the police saw it, but eventually someone realized
What?
the tree
Sir.
looks unique. Interesting V pattern right there. The hollowness of the tree as it goes down. The way in which 5 of those branches branch off. And eventually one of the detectives realizes why. Something clicked. It was the exact location he ditched his mother's remains.
Oh, man.
That's about 100 feet away. So obviously, it shouldn't come to anyone's surprise, at some point Chandler was arrested. In fact, he was arrested on July 8th, 2021. When you're arrested for a lot of crimes, you go to jail, you get booked in, and not much more happens investigation-wise after that. They have what they need. But of course, that's not the case in a murder investigation, especially something like this. So Chandler's taken to jail, and the police start searching. When I say searching, you're going to hear about searches of the house, searches of this farm, searches of this property. You're going to hear about searches of landfills and ponds and ditches all across Dane County. But one of the things they started searching was, what was this guy doing on his phone that weekend? And oddly enough, most of what they found was nothing. Either Chandler hadn't Googled anything all weekend, except for the 8th, or he had deleted his search history. You'll never know. But remember, he was arrested on July 8th, taken to the police station, and that's where they told him, hey man, we
like
know what's going
23,
on.
22. There you go. That number.
So meaning, while
That
he
one
was
right
still
there.
on his phone on July 8th, he was still telling everyone his parents were missing. Not just the police. This kid was standing in his front lawn giving media interviews to all the local media outlets about the cabin and the unknown couple and the unknown car. He was going door to door in his neighborhood. My parents are missing. Can you help me out? Do you have any security cameras, by the way? And you'll hear from these neighbors. Some of them were so weirded out by what was going on that they secretly recorded those conversations. One of them, you'll hear, was a man who'd only been retired as a detective with the City of Madison Police for about a month. He recorded his conversation with Mr. Halderson.
Oh, no.
But while he's doing this that morning, what's he Googling? This is what he's Googling. Body found,
Pornhub.
Wisconsin. Woman's body found, Wisconsin. Wisconsin dismembered body found. We'll come back to the next two. Dead body found in Wisconsin. Body found in Milwaukee River. He's searching for whether they found his parents. And you'll hear in this case, he's starting to search because he's starting to get worried because the amount of police in his neighborhood has been ramping up and up and up because unbeknownst to him, they're finding his parents' remains. And you'll hear that while this is going on, while he's Googling these things, he's frantically calling police officers. Hey, why are there more cops in my neighborhood? Calls this guy, Brian Shunk. He records him. What's going on? There's more cops. Did something happen? Did you find something? The middle ones, State versus Peter Kaputsa. Probably means nothing to everyone. It meant nothing to me when I first saw it. The name rung a bell, and I wondered why. Not only did it show he Googled State versus Peter Capuzza, it showed that he clicked on a link on the Wisconsin court's website and read something. What he read was a legal case, much like this one is the State versus Chandler Halderson. The State versus Peter Capuzza, though, was a case that made it to the Court of Appeals based on some legal technicalities about a man who dismembered part of his family members and threw their bodies in the river. So at the same time, Chandler Halderson is going door to door in his neighborhood, crying about his parents being missing, talking to the local news, telling sheriff's deputies, signing documents saying they're missing. He's conducting legal research to get himself out of today, so that today never happens. Now, when I started with that calendar a while ago, and I said the police were initially thrown off because of one thing, and that was this text message from Krista. And it's real. I'll tell you that text message is in all the search warrant returns from US Cellular. It's on the phone that we were able to search. We're not able to search every phone, but some of them are. Made it safely. Can't get anything through, though. Yes, it's packed. Going to White Lake today for the parade. Be home Monday night, Tuesday. Love you lots. Sent on the 4th of July. So the police started looking into that. And the first thing they found was White Lake. The parade was on July 3rd. Remember, the 4th of July this year was on a Sunday. So everyone celebrated on Saturday. So they started thinking, well, how the hell did this message get sent? So they searched the Halderson home where Chandler was. And in the garage, under a shelf, in a shoe, wrapped in aluminum foil, was his mother's phone, along with her driver's license. Police would later subpoena the records from US Cellular, the cell phone carrier that covers Chandler and the family. And they would look into what cell towers were being used when that message was sent. If you didn't know, all of you probably have cell phones. At any time, your phone is pinging off of different cell towers. It's not always the same. As you sit here, half of you might be using one tower and half of you might be using another. It's based on the workload of those towers. You'll hear about
So
that.
excited to get the cell
But
phone
it's
guy.
generally an approximate area of where you are. That message on July 4th, Krista there's in pink, Chandler's in green. The message was sent from the Halderson home on July 4th. Chandler sent it to himself. So at this point, the investigators began to wonder, and perhaps you're beginning to wonder how the evidence will come out. How does this happen? How does this kid, with everything in the world going for him, promising new jobs, school, a girlfriend that loves him, willing to move across the country for him, or even physically, a kid who just suffered this major concussion, was unable to use his legs for the most part. How does this happen? And what you'll learn, it happens because none of these things are true. He wasn't going to Madison College. He wasn't studying renewable resource engineering. The people at American Family Insurance, they'd never even heard of him. There's no indication he'd ever even applied for a job, much less had any job at SpaceX. The apartment he told his girlfriend he'd rented and the car he'd bought, none of that was real. The Madison police,
Dude, this presentation
they
is
don't even have a
brilliant.
scuba diving team. Neither does the DNR. And this concussion he apparently suffered, he did go to the hospital. You'll hear from the doctor who was there. Said, yeah, he came in, he reported that he hit his head, falling down the stairs. I diagnosed him with a mild concussion. Gave him a neck brace on the way out, told him he could use it if he needed it. But none of the things that Chandler reported to other people, the leg weakness, his inability to move, drive, travel, none of that was real. And given what you're going to find out in this case, you may conclude at the end of it, he never suffered any fall at all. What you may conclude is that it was all made up. Now, police started looking into all
That's
of
a
these
nice
lies.
wall.
Because how does a person who looked so promising, was able to convince so many people of his success, how are you able to keep this up? How are you able to catfish your family, your girlfriend, your brother, your friends? And they started to find things around the Halderson home in the email accounts of Bart and Krista Halderson, in the email accounts of Chandler Halderson. When they talk about American Family Insurance, the first big lie Chandler was making up, again, the people at American Family Insurance, you'll hear them testify. They're directors of human resources. You never worked there, never worked for any of their affiliates, never worked for any of the companies that are associated with them. Chandler had been claiming to work there for a year, but he never had any money. And his father was an accountant, so his father would ask him questions pretty much daily. Why don't you have any money? Why haven't you paid any rent? And Chandler spun an amazing web of lies. First, it was, well, I'm a salary guy, but they were accidentally paying me hourly, so they just held my paychecks until they fixed it. Then it was, well, I gave them the wrong direct deposit info. Then it kind of shifted eventually. And he said, well, they were going to pay me, but now the amount is so much, they got to pay me so much money that when they deposited in the bank, they thought it was fake. And police started to find emails like this. This from Tom Selznick, a guy at American Family Insurance in Northeast, remote human resources guy, describing this. You're registered as salary, but you're making hourly. And these emails would go back and forth with Chandler and the HR person, and eventually he'd forward them to his father. But in the way a parent looks at their child as maybe telling the truth is not the way that you as jurors have to look at this. You, like the police, maybe have to take a more critical look at emails like this. And for one, notice, why is the guy who works at Human Resources at American Family Insurance using a Proton Mail generic email address? Why is the guy who's the Human Resources manager spelling the word resources wrong, saying he's the Human Recourses manager? It's comically fake. He emailed himself back and forth.
He found a human recourse.
Trying to explain why he didn't have any money, and he forwards it to his dad. Now here's where the story gets maybe a little more complex. Having a fake job solves a lot of riddles in your life. No one's hassling you to get a new job. No one's hassling you to do chores all day. The problem is, if your dad works from home, if he was an accountant, for instance, which he was, and which he did, you actually have to wake up early every day and go to work. So there he was. Messages between Bart and Chandler. Hey, are you up for your meetings? Yeah. Over and over again. So Chandler woke up. But he had nothing to do all day because his job was pretend. And so he sat on his computer playing video games. And I'm not against people playing video games. I'm a guy myself. People play video games. But video games, if you don't know, and some of you are of an age where you do, and some of you are an age where you don't, are a much more social thing than they used to be. When you play video games, you don't just sit on Nintendo 64 and play Mario by yourself. You're playing role-player games with people from around the world.
Don't show your age, sir.
Who's up early in the morning when Mr. Halderson had to wake up to attend his fake work meetings? People in the military who are stationed overseas. They speak English. They're American. But they're on a different time schedule. They're on his time schedule. Most people here probably
did they
play video
find
games
them
at night during weekdays.
They did, didn't they?
But every day, Mr. Halderson was able to wake up and find a group of friends to play video games with online, one of which was stationed in Germany.
Dang!
This friend was a guy named Andrew Smith. Now, Mr. Smith, Mr. Halderson, became kind of best friends.
No judgment.
They talk all the time.
I do too.
They communicated in this video game all the time. And Mr. Smith, he'll testify. He's coming up here. Lives down south. He's back in the U.S. He'll tell you that Chandler really liked an SKS rifle when they play some of these shooting games. It was just something he liked. Not a big deal. There's nothing wrong with that. But this past summer, about a month before the murders of Bart and Krista Halderson, this online friend, Andrew Smith, comes to visit Mr. Halderson and stays at the home with Bart and Krista. This is the picture of Mr. Smith and that perhaps crudely designed yellow shirt. That's Mr. Halderson. It's the only photo we have of him on that visit. You'll learn that Mr. Smith had gotten out of the military. He was done with it. But you also learn that he really likes guns. Like, he really likes guns. And he knew his friend liked SKS rifles. So when he visited him this year in June, he brought with him a gift, the SKS rifle that was found about 100 yards from Bart Halderson's body. Now, you'll meet Mr. Smith, and you'll probably concur with me after meeting him. He's not really probably a paperwork kind of guy. And so
I think it's safe to say we all need that shirt. All of us. Every single one of us.
when he gave the gun to Mr. Halderson, he wanted to document that he transferred the gun, but he wasn't going to fill out any paperwork. So he just took the serial number of the gun. He put Mr. Halderson's driver's license next to it and snapped a picture on his phone. There's a clear picture of that. But that serial number matches the gun found in the barn 100 yards from Bart Halderson's body. And before Mr. Smith left, he decided he would gift his friend something else, which was about 400 rounds of high-powered ammunition.
Jeez.
Now, you'll hear from Mr. Smith. Despite maybe his bizarre actions and maybe his bizarre statements he may make, he's not a suspect. Police proved he was in Texas at the time all of this happened. Another unknowing accomplice to Mr. Halderson's crimes. So at this point, Mr. Halderson's working a pretend job at American Family Insurance. He's not getting paid. His father, who's an accountant, is kind of on his case about it. And he's got to figure out something else. And the best way out of your pretend job is an even more pretend job. So around May, going into June of this past year, American Family wasn't going well. So Mr. Halderson decided to get a new job. He's going to be an astronaut. I work at SpaceX. This is messages to his girlfriend. I have a good feeling about SpaceX. I have a follow-up interview for Florida tomorrow. Shoot, sorry, I got the job.
Astronaut.
I have training next week over the computer and leave June 11th and start June 14th. He didn't give himself a lot of time, but what he gave himself was an escape hatch. He could move. Could end the lies that he had going on in his life about being a rescue scuba diver and working for American Family Insurance.
Lie
simply moving to
bigger.
Florida. That presented with it one major problem, which was that job, which was also make-believe, would pay absolutely no better than the last job that was make-believe. So in late June, as he's supposed to start the job at SpaceX in Florida for Elon Musk, something happens in the Halderson family, something real. There's a change. Remember when I started off and I said there were two sons? His older brother gets hospitalized. That's real. It happened. Got diagnosed with diabetes and was having some complications. He's doing great now. Mr. Halderson uses that as an excuse to delay starting at SpaceX. It was a stroke of good luck for him, a stroke of bad luck, of course, for the family, but a stroke of good luck for him. But that only gave him a couple of weeks. So his brother, who's doing really well in life, engaged, house, real job, making a lot of money, suddenly he's in the hospital, being doted over by his family, by his mother. People care about him. So roughly a week later, when Chandler Halderson needs to think of a new lie to get out of the SpaceX lie, guess who ends up in the hospital? Being doted over by his mother and his family with a supposed neck injury. This is Father's Day of this year, in late June.
He had a whole neck brace.
That's Bart Halderson in the middle, Mitchell on the right. Of course, Chandler wearing a neck brace that no one told him he had to wear on the left. Now, around this time, Chandler started telling people an extraordinarily bizarre set of claims. That he had a brain bleed, a hematoma, that he had spinal damage, that he needed his head drilled open, that he inability to use his legs at all. Couldn't drive. People had to do that for him. that he had nerve damage, that he needed to get a colostomy bag. But most importantly, he couldn't go to Florida. The doctors had told him he couldn't fly. Of course, that's not true. You'll see his medical records and you'll see his doctor testify. So suddenly this man, who was, for all intents and purposes, disabled, was being doted over by his family. People were making him meals. You'll see notes his mom was leaving for him. Call this neighbor if you need anything. She'll help you out. Couldn't drive, couldn't work, couldn't do chores. Now, a bit of a preview and a fast forward. This guy who was wearing a neck brace nearly every day in late June 2021 would have no problem just days later carrying large bags of ice out of gas stations to chill his father's cut-up body in a freezer. And you'll note, no neck brace. And in fact, you'll note in this case, Chandler Halderson is never seen in that neck brace again after July 1st, 2021, when he kills his parents.
Don't go.
So the job lies are over for Chandler in his life. American Family Insurance, don't worry about that because he got this new job at SpaceX. In SpaceX, I can't go because I'm hurt. It was a perfect scenario. But there was one last lie that Chandler had to get out of. And that is he had told everyone he was going to MATC for college and that he was about to graduate. And you'll hear there's a hint of truth to that he was going there at one point. In fact, there's a hint of truth to all of these lies. He did go to MATC for like a semester. He failed out. But he wasn't going there anymore. And the parents were starting to grow suspicious. And we knew this because when we searched the house, we started to find notes on Bart Halderson's desk. Bart Halderson was one of these guys who prints his emails. I don't know if any of you print your emails, but some people, they get an email and they print it out. That was Bart. And we find one. It's an email between Bart and Krista, detailing a conversation that he had had with Chandler's advisors at MATC. Supposed to meet with someone else, so we met with this guy, Daniel Spieth. Chandler's going to get a solar certificate. He wasn't. He's registered for fall classes. He wasn't. He's in the IT program. He wasn't. All of these things, line by line, none of them true. But Bart Halderson talked to this person. So police honed in on something. That line. When I talked to the advisor, he sounds just like Chaz on the phone. And he gives this number. That is, of course, because Bart Halderson, when he talked to Chandler's college advisor, was just talking to Chandler, who had bought a burner phone, cheap phone from like Walgreens that you can buy with no service carrier. And police know that because they searched Chandler's bedroom. And in his desk drawer, they found that phone. Now, this kept going. The lie about going to MATC or Madison College was the most extensive. There were emails, dozens, if not hundreds of emails going back and forth between supposed advisors at MATC and Chandler, and then he'd forward them to his dad from people like someone named Alyssa Brandt, 64. Sometimes Chandler would spell Brandt, B-R-A-N-D-T, sometimes just with a T and no D, depended on the day. But they all had the @Gmail address, not @madisoncollege.edu. And you'll hear from the people at Madison College. Their people have real emails. They don't use Gmail. But it was over and over again. Alyssa Brandt was one of them. You heard about Daniel Spieth, also @Gmail. There was someone named Aaron Hoover, also @Gmail. In this one, Chandler's getting upset. I have to have a call with whomever's in charge within the next 30 minutes. I have been a student for over 3 years, and I will be treated fairly. Of course, he's yelling at himself. All of these were fake. Back and forth to himself, and eventually to his dad. The Halderson parents had to have been growing extraordinarily frustrated. Kid wasn't getting paid. He was injured suddenly. His college transcripts aren't coming through, so he can't get a job. So police looked at that original note again. They saw something interesting, which is in this sea of fake people, Daniel Spieth, Aaron Hoover, Tom Selznick, Alyssa Brandt. There was one name that stood out, Omar Job. And that name didn't stand out because it was fake. It stood out to the police because it was real. That is the only real person on any of these emails. And what we've discovered in this investigation is in just the day and a half prior to being murdered, Bart Halderson, Chandler's dad, called MATC and pretended to be Chandler to try to finally get some information on what's going on. Just as any of you could call any doctor and pretend to be your kid, you know their name, their social security number, their birthday, you can get through. You can get through those minor security things. Bart called MATC, said, I'm Chandler, and I want some answers. And for 17 minutes, Bart Halderson, just before his murder, talked to a man named Omar Job. Omar Job is a entry-level customer service guy at MATC. He's got no skin in the game, doesn't even really remember the call, but it was recorded for customer service purposes. And Bart Halderson questions Omar, and he's very mean at first, because in his mind, he'd been getting screwed around for a year on where his son's transcripts were and what degree program he was in and why he hasn't graduated yet.
Guess who's back?
But toward the end of the
Back
call,
again.
Bart
Night court's back.
asked Omar Job, hey, do any of these people
Hello,
work there?
friend.
Alyssa Brandt, Daniel Spieth, Aaron Hoover. And he's told no, they've never worked there. And in fact, they haven't. And he says, that'll be it then. That'll be it then, are the last recorded words of Bart Halderson alive. Bart Halderson, shortly after that, sends a text message. Text message that ultimately sealed his fate, which was a text to his own son. And it says, I spoke with Omar Job. Now, what happens over the next 24 or so hours is a bit unknown. Homicide investigations are a lot of unknowns because the two people who are the victims, who maybe know the most about what happened, are of course dead. But there's not much verifiable information that happens over the next 24 hours. It's also unknown if Chandler even knew who Omar Job was. Of course, he wasn't going to MATC, so why would he know who some lowly entry-level customer service guy was? He wouldn't. But Bart Halderson did. And when you look at Bart Halderson's work calendar that he maintains at his accounting firm, you see something quite interesting. Remember at the beginning, I said I wanted you to remember a date and a time, which was that the Haldersons were killed between 3 and 5 p.m. on July 1st, 2021. Guess what was on Bart's calendar at that exact time? He was supposed to have a meeting with the people at MATC with his son. So he's supposed to go to MATC and have this meeting at 3 o'clock on July 1st, 2021. Of course, that meeting couldn't happen because he wasn't going there and none of the people were real, but Bart Halderson knew that. Bart Halderson knew that. And so Chandler had obviously figured that out at this point. There was no way out of this one. You can't get out of this lie. And so the next day, Chandler Halderson wakes up on July 1st and starts messing.
Good question. Here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to do the openings today, and then call it a night. We gotta stretch it out. We gotta stretch it out. We gotta warm up. We gotta warm up into the longer evenings. But one, we gotta warm up first, and two, this was very last minute, very impulsive, and so I don't want to do that to the mods. I don't. That's just not nice. People have lives, and I don't believe in keeping people, last minute up super late, even though we're usually up late, but also, just waiting. So yes.
Messaging his girlfriend.
I think so. I think you have
7:26,
time.
I hardly slept. 7:27, stuff hasn't been going well for me lately. Just trying to plan for the next thing to fuck me over. 7:51, I had a great future planned. It's falling apart. 1:04, just 2 hours prior to the murders. I overheard they might go to the cabin with their friends, but I don't know. So somewhat of a full circle at this point, that's the moment Chandler Halderson decides to kill his parents and engage in this bizarre story of them missing at a cabin with an unknown couple in an unknown car at 1:04, July 1st. Now, shortly after this message, just about an hour and 10 minutes, Bart Halderson's getting ready to go to MATC for this meeting, perhaps to confront Chandler. Perhaps Chandler's going to confront him. Bart texts Chandler, "I'm ready whenever you are." That's about 50 minutes prior to when he was killed. Those are the last words ever recorded of Bart Halderson. His phone is never used, really. Again, dies at some point. He never goes back to work. No one ever sees him. The neighborhood he lives in, riddled with security cameras, never see him again. I'm ready whenever you are. What the evidence will show in this case is that sometime after the "I'm ready whenever you are" message, probably just around 3 o'clock when he was supposed to go to this meeting with MATC, Bart Halderson was shot in the back multiple times with a high-powered rifle.
Shunk up.
And after shooting his dad,
I make him bit.
Chandler texts his mom. "Dad's phone died. Text or call me. And get sewed on your way home. I have an extra hour of work." You know he didn't have an extra hour of work, but he was delaying her getting there because the evidence will show he needed to move things around, prepare for what he was about to do when she showed up. She responds, "Kay, I can," smiley face. Those are the last words of Krista Halderson alive. Shortly thereafter, around just after 5, neighborhood security cameras, the Haldersons didn't have one, but the neighborhood, a lot of people did, show Krista pulling in, getting out of the car, walking in. She's never seen again until her legs are found out by the Wisconsin River. But just after killing his mom and his dad, the evidence in this case will show that Chandler went on his phone. If you go on your phone, I don't know if any of you have ever taken a note. You can take notes on your phone. iPhone has an app called Notes. We got some raw data, and I'll put it up here in a second. I won't put the raw data because it's a bit challenging to see. But Chandler creates a note about 5:11 that day on July 1st, probably minutes after killing his parents. And the note reads, "Weekend chores, H2O2 lemon." H2O2 is the chemical name for hydrogen peroxide. You'll hear from people in this case, it's essentially a household cleaner to clean up blood. Lemon, it deodorizes things. Mixed together, it's a pretty cheap cleaning product. You can have at home. So Chandler writes a note after murdering his parents. "H2O2 lemon. Door handles. Move your shit upstairs. Get a job."
A little late, sir.
He then does just that. Spends the afternoon cleaning the house, eventually jumps in the shower. We know he's in the shower because his girlfriend and him FaceTime when they're in the shower. No judgment, but that's what happened. And the girlfriend took a screenshot.
Gross.
We know he's in the shower. They say they're good nights, and Chandler says, "I'm going to bed." But he doesn't. He goes to gas stations. He's carrying out large bags of ice. Because what Chandler had done that night is what you all probably suspect by now. He had dismembered his parents, or at least started the process, and had to fit them inside of freezers that were in the Halderson home. You'll see some of these freezers, they're cleaned. There's still some evidence around. That night, I'm not going to show many photographs for a little bit, just because I think you deserve to kind of be eased into some of the things you're going to see. That night, what appears to have happened, what the evidence will show, is Mr. Halderson took items from around the house and began cutting apart his parents. Saw blades covered in Bart and Krista's blood. An axe, Bart and Krista's blood. Handsaws, things of that sort, covered in Bart and Krista's blood. He cleaned the house as best he could, and you'll hear about that. But still, blood spatter found of Bart and Krista's blood around the house. And he had a plan. It wasn't a well thought out plan, but he had one. And that was he was going to burn the remains in the family fireplace there in the house. So it's July 1st. And if any of you remember, 4th of July weekend's pretty hot this year. People in the neighborhood thought it was a little bit weird that someone's fireplace was going on. They smelled stuff. One person, this neighborhood's full of retired cops, but one retired cop said, I smelled like a barbecue, smelled like a pig roast. And he said that just not knowing what it was at the time, talking to the police. And that night, a neighbor who had a security camera behind the Halderson home, way far away, was able to catch something. Because it was pitch black at night, it was able to catch just a little glimpse of all the windows in the Halderson house. We have an expert that's going to come in who works with video and light analysis. And he's going to tell you, he was able to figure out which window that was. And the window it was that he was looking at in that camera footage that kind of just piqued his attention was the window by the fireplace. And for many hours over the course of that night, the light flickered, came on, died down, on, down. But in the early morning hours the next day, he'd been up all night doing this. Because you'll learn, you really can't burn human remains. Your home fireplace is not going to get hot enough to do that. It takes an extraordinary amount of heat. If you go to like a crematorium, you're inducing it with oxygen, chemicals, not a residential fireplace. But eventually, in the middle of the night, the fire started going well. It appeared that air was being pumped into it, and you'll see when they searched the Halderson home, there was in fact a fan found right next to the fireplace, next to a tape measure, trying to make sure the remains were the right size as they went in the fireplace. But that light at one point grew and grew and grew, and it got very bright in one room. Then all of a sudden, the kitchen light came on, and then all the lights went out. I don't know if anyone's ever taken a hot Pyrex pan out of the stove and put water in it, or dumped water on your hot water on your windshield on your car in the winter, but it explodes the glass. The evidence in this case will show that what happened was the fire had gotten out of control, burning these human remains. Human fat was rendering out. It was igniting. So Chandler threw water on it. But when you throw water on your residential fireplace, you break the glass. And that's exactly what happened. Just above that broken glass panel, which is clearly shattered, you see the paint kind of bubbled off from the heat. This is in the search of the home some week later. The fireplace is clearly used. The police noticed something interesting about this photograph, which is, despite being clearly used, the logs are rebuilt. Someone had cleaned out all the ashes and rebuilt it. Clean logs, newspaper, one burnt piece in the middle. But what stuck out to police right away was that little rock right there. They thought, what is that? You'll hear from the people who collected this evidence. You'll hear from an arson specialist from the Department of Justice, a guy named Bill Boswell, who come in. You'll hear from a forensic anthropologist, a doctor named Cristina Figueroa Soto, who will tell you, we were all interested in what that was because it was out of place. So they pulled it off and they put it on one of these fancy police deals. And the forensic anthropologist took one look at it. And she said, oh, this is a human skull. He had burned his parents' heads in that fireplace. Later, the police would go through the ash trap of that fireplace, and they would find human remains, facial bones, the knee bones, which, because we found Krista's legs, by deduction, had to be Bart, all in the ash trap of that fireplace. They were all cataloged. Now, burnt remains can't be tested for DNA. There's no biological material left, but they're able to tell it's human based on the structure of the bone. And you'll hear from the anthropologist who will talk about that. So that's what happened on July 1st. Now you're going to hear about all of those days in between Bart and Krista dying at 3 o'clock on the 1st, all the way through the police report. But to summarize, Chandler stayed up all night, that night of the 1st. Obviously, things weren't going well, burning his parents' remains. So the next day, perhaps not having slept, he walked into Fleet Farm at 7:21 a.m. to buy a tarp. He's on video. He knew his girlfriend was spending the night that night, so he spent the whole day cleaning. But he's sending her text messages, which you'll see throughout the day, asking her to bring him hydrogen peroxide and a mop because he still needed to clean up. The next day, Saturday, July 3rd, 2021, his girlfriend leaves early in the morning. That's the day she snaps that picture of him out by the Wisconsin River dumping off his mom's remains. Spends the rest of the day hanging out. But when he goes home and says he's going to bed that night, this young man who supposedly couldn't drive or carry heavy objects, his phone records show that he's up near the Wisconsin River in Portage, as if you're driving the interstate up to the Dells, right when you cross the Wisconsin River, off in the state land there to the right. For about an hour in the middle of the night, the police tried to search that area. It was impossible with the currents. Whatever remains were thrown in there are lost forever. July 4th, 2021, this is the day he texts himself. Spends the day with his girlfriend's family, goes to their farm to use the pool. That's the day he says, hey, can I come back tomorrow? Goes to some fireworks. He's living a normal life. No mention of his parents. The next day, takes out the garbage in the morning. Who knows what was in that garbage can? We've thoroughly searched the landfills, but it's impossible to find anything. But he took out the garbage. He goes out to the farm to supposedly use the pool where he's seen walking out of the woods. Cell phone tower records prove that he was out there on the farm. Remember, I told you he told that person that he was having trouble at work and school and having a bad doctor's appointment. He never went to any doctor's appointment that day. Phone records show he never talked to any doctor. It was all a ruse to be able to go out in the woods and hide.
No peroxide meth.
The next day, not much happens because Chandler was up all night. Again, that light analysis shows all night, the garage light on and off. The garage, of course, being where we found some of these tools, the axe covered in blood. He's cleaning up. At 4:30 in the morning, for no apparent reason, he drives around the city of Madison. There's no idea what he did there. But he's not doing much. But people begin questioning him about his parents. He just says they're late. The person most worried, perhaps, is his girlfriend. She thought that was unlike them. The next day, he drives back to the farm, throws a bag of bloody rags into their garbage can that's out by the street. And at 11:22, he texts his girlfriend that he's finally going to the police. We know the bag of rags came from his house because they were in the Target bag his girlfriend picked up from Target, and she did the curbside pickup. So her name was printed on the outside. It was when she brought him hydrogen peroxide. He filled the bag with bloody rags and left it at the house. The next day, he starts Googling body found, Wisconsin dismembered body found. He's walking door to door asking about security cameras in his neighborhood. And at 4 p.m., they take him downtown and they arrest him at 6:41. So that's the story. That's why you're here for a couple weeks. Like I said in the beginning, a lot of cases end with the murder. This one, it's just a small piece of the puzzle. None of the things that happen after and none of the things happened before make any sense without knowing the murder happened on a specific day at a specific time. But the evidence in this case you'll find is overwhelming. Chandler Halderson killed his parents on July 1st, 2021. He cut up their bodies with axes and saws and knives. And he didn't even give them the dignity of having a funeral or even a final resting place in one piece or together. Their remains were scattered across Dane County, in public land, on farms, in garbage cans, rivers, and perhaps every ditch is a possibility in this county. You'll find the evidence in this case is overwhelming. Now, over the next couple of weeks, I'll make you a couple promises as your prosecutor in this case. I'm not here to waste your time. But of all the constitutional rights we talked about of Chandler, he has them. I want you to respect them. There's another one that you should know, which is this is the only time we get to have this trial. You get one trial in the United States of America, and I have to do it right. So if that means calling a lot of witnesses, I apologize in advance. If it means calling experts to say things that maybe you already know, I apologize in advance. But I'm going to do my job right as your prosecutor. Second, you're going to see terrible photographs. There were approximately 5,000 photographs taken in this case. You're going to see maybe total a couple hundred of actual body parts, maybe a couple dozen. We have scoured those photographs and tried to remove ones that are just horrible to see because of the conditions the bodies were in, because of insects and maggots and things of that sort, and instead are trying to only show you photographs that help you understand how the remains were hidden, where they were hidden, how they were dismembered. To the extent possible, we're using cleaner photographs that were taken by the Dane County Medical Examiner. I promise you, I'm not trying to pull on anyone's heartstrings. I'm not trying to make this overly emotional. You might feel emotional. I suspect many of you have never seen anything like what you're going to see in the next couple of weeks. But I promise to do my best to limit the amount. And lastly, I promise to just ask questions, a lot of questions, because you're the jury in this case, and you deserve to hear absolutely everything. It will be a struggle. You'll get sick of walking back and forth to these jury rooms. You might get sick of each other. I hope not.
That sounds
But it's
terrible.
an important task. What happened here shouldn't happen, but it did. And so in a couple weeks, when I stand up here and Ms. Raymond stands up here, I'm going to ask you to deliver a verdict of guilty, to finally bring some much needed truth to Chandler Halderson. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney.
Okay, we're gonna pause it for 1 second for a couple reasons. We are gonna watch the defense's opening, obviously. Per llama, it's not that long. Sounds like a really bad prom night. But before I do that, I want to. This is a nice spot to kind of. Well, there's no nice spot in this trial, obviously, as we've heard. But I wanted to go ahead and let you know that there's a new show that we're going to be doing. Well, Terry's going to be doing, and it's going to be called Midday Missing, and it's going to be Mondays and Wednesdays. Every Monday and Wednesday, around I think it's 12 p.m. Central, so 1 p.m. Eastern. And so I'm going to play the intro / promo for that, and then I'm going to play Hey Ho Show promo, and then we're going to get right back to the defense, and then we're going to call it a night. So here you go. Yeah, so there's two shows there. True Crime and Wine Time, of course, but Midday Missing is going to be fantastic because Terry and I both believe that we need to bring attention to cases that might not get much attention, and if we have this platform, use it for good. That's what we want to do. We want to give you a variety of things and bring good things you bring good things to cases. So we want to bring attention to cases. That's the best thing we can do as civilians, as laymen per se. So to say. So Midday Missing is going to focus on missing persons cases. The case with Chase Lackey, as True Crime and Wine Time investigates, has been going through, has been progressing, and it's gone well. And we would like to bring more attention to more cases. So Terry, with the help of I think Angie and maybe a couple others, Terry is delving into cases not as deeply as Chase Lackey because we're still working on that one, but enough so that we can bring information to you all. And who knows, maybe you guys will know something about it. So really excited for that to start Mondays and Wednesdays, midday. So again, 12 Central, 1 Eastern, and then of course Hey Ho Show every other Friday. So let's go ahead and get to defense.
Brown. Counsel, Attorney Brown, could whoever's giving the opening come up? We don't have to, we can do this without going off. Just want to discuss time. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen,
that was
we're going to
fast.
take our morning break at this point.
No,
And,
Judge.
What will happen is Randy will take you back. You'll go to your respective rooms. You'll have at least 15 minutes. We'll come back.
Thank you.
If you would, please.
That's what I think Terry wants to focus on. Yes. A little bit of everything, but yes. So if you have
Chandler
something, feel free to
Halderson
email us.
did not murder his parents. He is not guilty of those crimes. Chandler Halderson is 23 years old, young
Chander.
man. He likes to play video
Chander.
games, play with his dogs, hang out with his girlfriend, and he lived peacefully in his parents' home. He was just a normal kid. He is a normal kid.
She can't even get his name right.
What did happen? What happened to the Haldersons? What happened in that Haldersons home? Remember those questions. They won't be answered at the end of this trial. Remember those questions at the end of this trial when you have to decide whether the state has proven to you that Chandler Halderson killed his parents, because they simply don't know what happened. They just told you what they think happened. We heard a lot of detail of the before and a lot of detail of the after. But one or two simple sentences, and then he killed his parents. The evidence will show you that there is a gap of evidence when it comes to that time frame. And your job is to listen to this evidence as jurors. Listen to the evidence from the perspective of a juror, not from the perspective of a story.
Chander, perspector.
Corroborating the state's story. The role of being a juror is a different role than being a person. And that may sound strange, but it is. I think of when I went to law school way back in 1991, and there's a big part of me that feels I went into law school a human being who lived my life feeling things emotionally and relating to things emotionally. And I left law school a really different person. I learned how to be very logical, to apply facts, first to assemble facts, and then to apply these facts to the law as I learned it. Facts, laws, and rules, plus logic. That's your role here as a juror. Don't assume anything.
I already was.
Assumption is the mother of all mistakes. The story that you just heard assumes that Chandler Halderson killed his parents. You cannot assume anything.
Shander. You might as well just call him Ethan.
To presume,
Pick a name.
presumption,
Whatever you want.
presume that Chandler Halderson is innocent because he today is under the benefit of the presumption of innocence. An assumption is reaching a conclusion without knowing all the information. A presumption is a principle that we all must follow. We must presume him innocent, and we must.
A presumption is an idea taken to be true, used as the basis of another idea, although it's not known for certain. Ma'am. What dictionary are you using?
Keep that presumption.
Is it a Wisconsin dictionary?
Unless and until the state proves
No offense.
every element
Sorry.
of every charge beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not easy. It's not easy in a high-profile case. It's not easy in a case where we all know we're going to see evidence that is disturbing. But you must find a way.
No, I'm
like
just
I
good with
did in
Google.
law school, to put your emotions, put your feelings aside, and use the logical part of who you are. Be a juror. Assemble the facts, know the law, and apply the logic without letting your feelings or emotions get in the way. And for each of you, you might have a different way of doing that. But I'm asking you here today to dig deep and find out how that will work for you so that you can presume my client innocent. Now, I'm not going to have a fancy PowerPoint here, and I'm probably not even going to talk very much longer.
Because you got nothing.
But as I comment to you on the evidence that you're going to see in this case, I want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, and the judge already indicated this in some of the preliminary instructions, lack of evidence is evidence just as much as any evidence that is presented to you in the courtroom. Look for what's missing. Look for alternate explanations. Because the second thing I want to tell you is that evidence of one thing is not necessarily evidence of another thing.
Ma'am. Ma'am. I've heard these arguments in persuasive speeches from freshmen in college who use the word, well, at that point, it shows my age, who use the word ratchet regularly. Ma'am, please. Just because you talk quietly and slowly does not mean that you're smarter.
These one fact here could mean a different fact here, but it also could mean 3 or 4 other facts. So you have to avoid jumping to conclusions and really dig deep and look at what this all means. You're going to notice that many of the facts, many of the witnesses,
She's a children's show
aren't going to
host.
be hotly contested by the
That's what she
defense
sounds
in
like.
this case. And that goes back to what I was just saying.
Ma'am, I don't think defense attorney means what you think it means.
12, 18, 100 reasonable people can look at a certain situation and form a different conclusion.
Ma'am, did you see the election of 2020? No, they cannot. No, they cannot.
And when you're talking about a system where you need to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, you better make very sure that you're excluding all of the other things that these facts could mean.
She's literally going for reasonable doubt. She has nothing. She has no alternative timeline. She has no alternative suspect so far. But she's literally going for reasonable doubt. That is his defense. He should have fired her.
Because you just aren't going to know what happened. You're going to know some about the before. You're going to know some about the after. But you're not going to know what happened in the Haldersons' home. Who did it? What happened? How it went down? Whether it was intentional or not, which is an element of homicide. You're just not going to know. You're also going to not know how Bart and Krista would have reacted to these lies.
Just don't. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have been happy about him. I'm pretty sure he would have been kicked. And I'm pretty sure he knew he was going to get kicked, just like Joel Guy Jr. And this was the result. This was the result. Ma'am, you just need to stare at your notes and read them, because every time you go off script, you get lost. And so does the jury.
That's never going to be explained to you. Why lying turns into murder, or how lying turns into murder. Be sure to look for what
I'm feeling more and more like this, yes.
Told. Because that's evidence just as much as any evidence is. I'm going to ask you to resist some things in this case as jurors.
Maybe I should give her some tips.
We already talked a little bit about proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Just the tips.
What that means is you must resist guessing. You must resist speculation. You must resist storytelling. And only convict.
You're about to tell a story?
It's proven, or if it's proven, which it won't be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Ma'am. There it is, reasonable doubt.
I'm going to ask you to resist losing your objectivity.
I'm going to go straight forward and tell you that I'm biased. I know this has happened already, but I'm not going to make you think that I'm just kind of up in the air about this. I am biased. I don't care. Chandler's a jerk. He definitely did this. She has no idea what she's talking about. I am biased.
Objectivity may be hard for people in this case because of the graphic nature of what you've just been told or what you're going to see. But you need to resist losing that objectivity. Commit to being jurors, dispassionate, logical. Don't be swayed by fear. And I ask you to resist any pressure you might feel to convict Mr. Halderson of murder in this case. It's a little unorthodox, but I'm going to tell you, at the end of this case, Attorney Vera and I may stand before you here and say, you know what? They did convict him of this, but what evidence do you have of murder?
Literally everything. All the things.
I like to talk about the Constitution, probably because I'm a defense lawyer.
I like to talk about the Constitution. Is she okay? Does she need some water? Do we need to get her some H2O too? Is that what we need to... Do we need to do this? because she's not helping. Not at all. Not at all.
But I think as jurors, as people coming into the system who aren't dealing with this every day, like we are here in the courtroom, you have to remember how important the Constitution is, how important the presumption of innocence is for Mr. Halderson.
She was really hoping for
and
her
how
Kirk
important
Nurmi
proof
moment, and
beyond
she
a
won't get in
reasonable
it.
doubt is. It's the highest standard we have. And it was created and perseveres to this day for this very reason. When someone is on trial for the most serious crime possible, and every little thing they do, every little
That makes me happy.
lie they might have told is blown up and thrown against someone. That's when proof beyond a reasonable doubt matters.
There it is. Reasonable. I'm telling you, reasonable
You
doubt. She's got
jurors,
nothing else.
Not the sheriff's department, not Mr. Brown or Ms. Raymond or me or the judge get to decide this case.
Hey, Llama, can you tell me something? Or anybody who's seen this, does she spend the majority of the trial trying to discredit all of the witnesses that aren't hers? Because I guarantee you that if she's going with reasonable doubt, she's going to try and discredit all the witnesses that are not hers. That's my guess. I'm not sure, but what?
Individually, you all get
Nope,
a vote.
on a rope.
You all get to make your own decision. I simply ask that you remember your role as jurors, that you find a way to stay objective.
Yes, no.
That you look for the key questions, the key facts that aren't answered, and that you hold the government to this high burden of proof. If you do those things, if you can resist these things, you will reach the right conclusion. Chandler Halderson did not murder his parents.
Did she look at them when she said that? She didn't even look like. She didn't even look at them when she said that.
At this
Hey,
point,
Chandler, that's your defense. That is your defense. No, or your mom. That's your defense. Way down upon a Swanee River. Ramp. He surely did. Surely did. Y'all. Good grief. Well, everybody, listen. Welcome back to Night Court. I hope that you're happy to be back. Please, please, please share this out. Send it to your friends. I usually say send it to your enemies, but don't do that. I like this community. I like a good community. Terry and I both want a positive, supportive community. We will never ask for anything else. It's something that we really believe in. We think is important. I'm afraid if I make myself larger on the screen, I'm going to be blurry. I'm probably going to be blurry. That's okay. It won't be much longer. So, just kind of push it out there. Let people know. This is a shorter one, obviously, so it's a good time for everybody to catch up. Y'all, I can't tell you how happy I am to have this back. I think it was a good impulsive move. We are going to attempt for every Monday and Wednesday, for sure. That's my goal. And I say that knowing, know this, this Wednesday is not happening because there is a soccer tournament match that I have to mascot because I'm still mascotting. So this Wednesday is not happening. I will see if there's another day we can make up for it. But if not, we'll be back Monday. So, we just kind of we're just going to roll with it. And I will make sure that join the courtyard. The courtyard will have, hey, Angie's right on it. Join the courtyard. The courtyard will have the updates and things like that. Okay. You can ask me questions. You can join in the courtyard. Terry is also a member. You can submit missing cases if you want. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in there. We do a lot of stuff. We just had an entire season marathon of trial and error today. We're also doing Game of Thrones season marathons. We're doing a lot more stuff than just trials. Okay. And so, and that's something that I think me, the mods, and the mods of Courtyard, that's what we want to do. We want to bring you a round, kind of a round amount of stuff. Look at me. I'm talking like the defense attorney now, just confusing. Anyways, I really appreciate the fact that you all came back. It means a lot to me. For those of you that I haven't seen in a while, thank you for being here. I missed you. For those of you who have seen, I miss you too every time we're not on. But make sure that you hit the subscribe button, please. That really helps us out. And that's going to help you out too, because it's going to let you know when we go live and when things are scheduled. That's True Crime and Wine Time, Midday Missing, Night Court, and the Hey Ho Show. That's 4 shows on this channel every week. And I think that that's pretty solid. That's a solid lineup. Again, please, if you can, head down to buymeacoffee.com /support Slidell. That's going to not Slidell as the community, although they also need help, but it's going to a mom and her son, Jennifer and Mason, who lost everything in the tornado that went through Slidell. Her son is about to graduate. She works real hard to make sure that they have an awesome life, and they just lost everything, including their vehicle. So please consider going there. I am leaving this Buy Me a Coffee open for quite some time. I am not switching it back to me for a long time. And when I do, I will make sure you know, because I don't want you donating something and it's not going to that. It's going to me. I don't want that to happen. So you will be aware when that changes, but it will not be for the foreseeable future. So if you cannot do it now, you can do it later maybe. That's great too. This will be a rolling thing. And on top of that, I will be donating all of these proceeds directly to the 2 folks. I will not be giving it to the site that they are using, and there's a reason for that. I know that sounds harsh. There's a reason for that. It's because that site takes a percentage, and I want them to get everything that was donated from us to them. So Buffy wonderfully gave me some of their information so that I can send it directly to them. So there will not be a percentage taken off. Okay. That's why they use Buy Me a Coffee and not like YouTube, etc., because YouTube takes 30% and then the state takes 30%. So you are only, there's 40% left of the donation on YouTube that anybody gets. None of us get, like, when we are monetized here, I'm telling you right now, I look forward to that time, and I look forward to your support in that fashion. So does Terry. And that is how we continue to make the channel grow. But when it comes to fundraisers, I will be doing them off this channel on like Buy Me a Coffee or somewhere else, so that percentage is not pooled before we can give it to somebody, because that's not cool. That's not the way that I work. I know that's not the way Terry works. We want to make sure that 100% of what you give of your hard-earned money goes to the cause. Okay. So that's why you see Buy Me a Coffee and not something else, not a direct link. I want to make sure they get 100%. So now I'll get off of my my soapbox, my coffee box, my soapbox. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. It's 11:10. I told you I got to stretch. Got to stretch, guys. It's been a while. So please, if you can, great. If not, that's fine too. It is not necessary, but much appreciated. Okay, good. I'm glad you got that working. Cool beans. If that link is not working, Angie will let me know. I'll make sure it's updated in the command. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it more than you know. I'm gonna go downstairs and probably cry a little bit. I missed you a lot. I missed this a lot. I miss doing this. I love doing this. I have a passion for this, no matter how tired I get, and how ridiculous trials or hard trials are. I just love hanging out with my friends. It's just what I love to do, whether it's 2 or 100. you're going to get the same show no matter what. So everybody, take care of yourself, take care of your friends and your family and your community. Don't let anybody dull your sparkle, and shine on. Shine on, you crazy diamonds. I'll see you guys on Thursday, I think it is. I'll check the Twitter. I'll be posting on there a little bit more. All right, bye everybody.